first episode of How to Counter. In this series we'll be going over how exactly you can counter the many overpowered weapons and frames in Conclave. First up is Atlas. His 1 and 2 aren't anything to worry about, but his other abilities are something else. 3. Petrify. This move straight up turns you to stone. But if you stay on the move during the fight and out of its 14-meter range, you'll have a fighting chance. 4. Rumbless. Rock. People that punch you and throw rocks. The Rumbless do way too much damage for anyone to actually fight them with a melee weapon. But explosive weapons like the Cool Star will work well against them because they stay in close proximity to each other most of the time. Another option is to outmaneuver them, doing damage while bouncing around so they don't hit you as much. Next up is Chroma. You don't have to worry about his 2 and 3. It's his 1 and 4 that should worry you. 1. Spectral Screen. Basically breathes fire like a dragon, but it carries the elemental effect of your energy color. It has a limited range of 15 meters. Which means if you get out of that range, and shoot him from afar, then you'll be able to kill him. His movement is limited when he's doing this ability. 4. Effigy creates a flame-throwing dragon turret. The important thing is that it's a turret, which means it can't move, and can't hit what's above it. Shooting the turret from above is the best way to deal with this. Next up is Frost. The only ability you don't have to worry about with him is his 2. 1. Freeze. Damages and slows down opponents in Conclave. Also leaves an ice puddle on the ground that slows down enemies who touch it. If he spams this just to slow you down, then stay moving. Remember, when someone spams their first ability, this means that they're losing 25 energy each time. If they're at full energy when they start, then they can only do it 4 times. If you stay on the move, and dodge most of his attacks, then he'll run out of energy quickly. 3. Snow Globe throws up a protective bubble of ice. If you go into this bubble, you will be slowed down and Frost will be able to melee kill you easily. The best thing to do is shoot at the bubble and break it. He'll need another 50 energy to make another. 4. Avalanche freezes/kills all enemies around him. If you're near him when he's doing this, get away as fast as you can. The key is to look at his feet when he's doing this, because they have icicles coming out of them. As long as they're there, you can get out of his ultimate. Passive. Melee hits slow you down. Next up is Kara. You don't have to worry about her other abilities, except for her 3. Binary. Spawns a Kavan that can attack, protect, or heal. Either way, the best way to deal with this cat is with explosives. Use the Penta or Zar against it. Next up is Limbo. 1. Vanish. The affected player is unable to damage Limbo. 2. Stasis freezes all projectiles in the air. 3. Rift Surge. When Limbo does after casting this, it's transferred to an enemy outside the rift. Enemies that leave the rift do a radial banish that puts them and everyone else around them in the rift. 4. Cataclysm makes a portal that takes Limbo to his dimension. You can go through the portal too. Most Limbo mains wouldn't know that, and you'll catch them by surprise. One thing about the rift: if Limbo doesn't do Cataclysm, or you can't find the portal because he did it in midair, you can't damage him as long as you're in the rift and he isn't, or vice versa. If this is the case, then just follow him until the banish wears off. Then when it does, kill him. Next up is Loki. The one and only ability that makes Loki overpowered is his decoy. Mainly because it has his primary weapon equipped instead of the Lotto. This means that if he's using a sniper rifle or bow, the decoy will automatically hit its shots. If this is the case, definitely take out the decoy just as it's activated. Another thing about Loki: if you ever want to play Lunaro, use him. He has the fastest sprint speed in the game. Next up, Mirage. Again, the only thing you should worry about from her is the iconic Simulor and Hall of Mirrors combo. That works in PvE and conclave. To counter this, find the real one who will be in the center, and get in melee range. Use slams as often as possible. Finally, for warframes there's Titania. Her 4 is the only thing you'll need to worry about. She can turn small, fly around and attack you. The best thing to do in this situation is to use explosives as much as possible. I recommend the pentatalons, or castanas. Moving on to weapons, we have the Ignis and the other beam weapons. These weapons are very deadly at close range and require next to no skill to use. But if you hit them from a distance, or hit them at close range then move away, they'll have a much harder time killing you. Side note, an explosive loadout isn't overpowered in conclave. And it gives you advantage when you're fighting against stuff like the Ignis using chroma mains. I would use Inaros because he can take the damage if you wind up hurting yourself. The Penta because unlike the Tonker it explodes when you tell it to. The Tonker's grenades don't explode if they hit something. The Cool Star because it drops many bomblets where the rockets land. And finally the Jotkuzer because its heavy attack explodes. Moving on, we have the Arx Plasmor. This gun's AoE is huge, but it's one of the easiest to beat. The gun has a slow fire rate, and takes 2 seconds to reload. If you use its short range to your advantage then you'll be able to shoot them from a distance. Or use its slowness to your advantage and get up close with the close range loadout, that being Garakoran, Oxeny, and Typho. Next up is the Simulor. Unlike everything else that's best countered at a distance, the Simulor thrives at that distance. To beat it, you have to get up close. Use the Typho. Next up is the Sonicer. This thing does 5 damage in conclave. It's used just to knock people down, which is kind of sad because the slam attack does the same thing. Whoever uses this is not only dumb, but just kind of pathetic. Next is the Staticer. These Duracell batteries make domes of electricity that damage you when charged. To counter this, get up close and don't stop attacking. Don't let them get away because they'll have room to use these. Moving on to melee weapons, we have the Wolf Sledge. When it's thrown it knocks down its opponents. To counter it, stay at a distance and keep moving. It's really hard to hit a moving target with the Wolf Sledge. Side note: melee blocking deflects all incoming damage except for explosives, toxic damage, and slams. This means that you should use toxic weapons to counter this, since you shouldn't get close. Personally, I use the Zocti with my long-range loadout. Anyway, the Telos Voltus slide attack pulls enemies in close, then does crazy amounts of damage. To counter it, stay at a distance and run and perch on walls so they can't slide attack you. Then use a toxic weapon to hurt them. That's all the overpowered weapons and frames in conclave. Now you know how to counter them. Please teabag players who use these weapons after each kill. They deserve it.